We are the chosen people. We have more rights than everyone else here. How do you square that away with the idea that everyone is just supposed to sing Kumbaya and work together? All right, let's watch Ankh and Ankur.
This very sophisticated network of propaganda that has, for many, many decades, I think.
We do got to go a little faster, though. Sorry. We're not going to be able to make it through any of this if we try and watch it on 1X.
Deluded many Americans, many people in the Western world into believing that Israel is the most moral nation on earth. Israel is our most important ally, the only democracy in the Middle East. And I think, and I read your book, and I saw
Dude, what happened to the stash, bro? Get that shit back immediately. All right. Get that shit back immediately.
Sense of nihilism in there as well, given the horrifying nature of the circumstances with Israel's genocide on Gaza. But I really appreciate that you have continuously pushed to uncover the truth. You are, of course, one of the most important chroniclers of the Israeli apartheid.
Like the equivalent of if they balded me, you know what I mean?
Centering the victims and also talking about the sophisticated propaganda network. I'm going to pull my questions really quickly, but I just wanted to give you that introduction first and foremost and explain to you that I will be a little bit nervous, so I apologize.
Well, there's no grounds to be nervous. We're discussing the facts, and there should be sober. I don't see any rational grounds for nervousness. I think one of the peculiarities of the Israel-Palestine conflict, as compared to, say, South Africa, is South Africa never tried to make an, so to speak, intellectual case in defense of its system, for the obvious reason that once the South African struggle, say,
Try 1.5? This is 1.5.
became a center of attention in the United States, it was impossible to defend it. We had just passed through the civil rights movement, the civil rights era, and there was no rational defense for the system of apartheid in South Africa.
Sorry, I don't think it's controversial to say. Norm just sounds normal at 1.5x. This is...
So apart
this
from
is good speed
what you
for
might
him.
call,
I think it makes Hasan a little fast, but it makes Norm perfect speed.
various organizations, in general, you didn't have to make a case. Whereas in the case of Israel, they had mobilized.
So can I just say, totally side note, this is not relevant at all to any of the points. Just need to say this really fast because I'm thinking it, which means the rest of you need to think about it. Norm being in the cut corner is crazy. I've said this before. I was low-key kind of shook when I saw how small Hasan's office is that he streams in. Like, look, I think my office is either the same size or bigger than his office, which is insane. But not that, like, how could his office be so small? It bothers me. But more so, it looks really big on camera. On camera, his setup looks huge. The room looks massive. And then you, like, see the behind the scenes and you're like, wait, that room is tiny. Like, it's not like a broom closet. The lens might be doing it. Yeah, the wide lens also does, like, a huge, take a peek at 1:44:37 slur. Why would I do that? Why would I skip forward to what the f is wrong with you? No, I'm interested in the actual conversation. Hello? Not whatever the f people are upset about now. Sorry, I got stun locked. Anyways, yeah, that tiny little corner that he put Norman that is messed up, dude. That's elder abuse. Putting him in the corner? That's elder abuse, bro. Stop.
Very sophisticated, abundant resources, but also sophisticated voices. And they made an intellectual case. And so long as they made it, it was compelling, it was convincing, because there really wasn't. Now remember, I'm an old timer, so I'm talking about the 1970s, 1980s. There wasn't much of an organized intellectual resistance. What happened was, I wrote a book, I believe it was 2012, it was called Knowing Too Much, Why the American Jewish Romance with Israel is Coming to an End. And the thesis of the book was, more and more information was coming out about the nature of Israel and the Israel-Palestine conflict. And the information that was coming out primarily from human rights organizations, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, the Israeli Center for Human Rights in occupied territories. They were all liberal sources. It's not like you could dismiss Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International. You couldn't credibly dismiss them as anti-Semitic. You couldn't credibly dismiss them as right-wing. You couldn't credibly dismiss them as trucking in invidious Jewish stereotypes. In fact, a large portion of their staff were Jewish, including the executive director, say, in the case of Human Rights Watch, it was Kenneth Roth. So, and American Jews are overwhelmingly moderate to liberal in their political sensibilities. So there came a point of what you might call critical mass. You couldn't reconcile your political, ideological convictions with the facts that were coming out. And I predicted roughly around 2017, 2012 or 2017, I can't remember. No, it's 2017. No, it was 2012. I predicted that this American Jewish support for Israel was going to begin to go on the wane. And then came Gaza. And Gaza was kind of overload. You couldn't any longer, strive as you may, you couldn't any longer ignore it. And so American Jews faced a crisis. And what I imagined would happen now, you had reached critical mass with Gaza, and everything fell apart. Aside from the handful of fanatics and crazies, it was indefensible. And I think now, you can never say these things with certainty because the news cycle passes. And maybe it could return to what it was before. Fancy word is the status quo ante. But I don't think so. I think it's pretty much over, the romance between American Jews and Israel, because it's untenable. Jews are not.
And I have to say, it's kind of cool that, like, the one benefit of living in this time, in this day and age, despite all the anti-woke shit, because I gotta say, I don't know how many people agree with me on this. One thing that really pisses me off is how much the anti-woke crowd has convinced people that things are more woke and that the left has gone too far or whatever, and there was a counterculture to that. Like, people just didn't complain when they saw black people on the TV. Going back and watching, like, Suits, it's like, oh, that's funny. Like, if they made Suits today exactly as is, these fucking morons on the internet would be like, look, they made it woke. The head of the best firm in the best law firm in New York is a black woman. It's like, I don't know what to tell you guys. They made shows with black people in them all the time, and nobody cared. Like, literally, no one cared. The only people that saw that and thought anything about it were, like, the super duper racists. And everyone else was like, oh, okay. And there's a lot of, like, rewriting of history where they're like, well, no, I wasn't upset about that because it was different. No, I wasn't. No, if that came out today, I would be fine with it. It's like, no, you wouldn't. You guys said Snow White failed because the main lead had back hair. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you good? Like, huh? And, like, I'm sorry. Yes, are there TV shows and movies that have women in them or black people in them that aren't good and aren't funny? Yeah. Just like every single, like, Seth Rogen movie. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Yes, as a treat, women get to not be funny sometimes. Just like men all the time, okay? Just like, you know, as a treat, you can have black people that aren't funny sometimes as a treat. All right? It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. Denims with another horrible take. Nice try, motherfucker. Nice bait. Wait, human beings have hair? Slandering Seth Rogen is crazy. Dude, the Seth Rogen movies are not funny. If you go rewatch some of them, they're not funny. Listen, he might be based as a person, but a lot of the movies he's in do not hold up and they're not funny. I'm sorry, it's true. It's true. They're all the same too. Yeah. It's funny how bad they are. If you think they're funny, you should think they're funny the way that, like, people like The Room. You know what I mean? Watch the food movie Not Stoned and try not to kill yourself. He was in a news show that was really good. Yeah, but that's like saying, like, what was that stupid movie? The Jewel movie? What the fuck was it called? Like Crown Jewels, Uncut Gems, thank you. That's like saying, what's the name of the lead actor? I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Adam Sandler. Okay, there we go. It's like me saying Adam Sandler movies are not funny. Like, I'm sorry. Go back and watch Adam Sandler movies. A lot of them are not funny. And then someone being like, excuse you, Uncut Gems was really good. It's like, okay. Congratulations. Okay, you got one. I didn't say that there's no way that he could ever be in a good movie or that, like, and I understand there's some level of, like, typecasting, right? And you're kind of stuck in certain roles, but, like, uh, uh, you know, Punch Drunk Love is the only other worthwhile Sandler role. Seth Rogen's role is to be the archetypical harmless boyfriend to white women who is occasionally funny on the side. Yeah, I think I would mostly agree to that. Yeah. Seth Rogen is 70% better than Adam Sandler. I mean, I didn't bring up Adam Sandler to compare the two of them. I brought him up to say that, like, he has one movie that people respect, and they don't really respect any of the other movies that he's ever been in. And I would say Seth Rogen is probably the same, where maybe he's got a new TV show that he's really good in, and it's a really good TV show. But, like, if you go back and watch any of the other old Seth Rogen movies, you're like, these are really not good. These are really... I don't know who's doing him dirty, if he's doing himself dirty, but this is not good. Why did I bring that up? Oh, right, I remember. Yeah, I was saying that, like, it sucks to live in the anti-woke time where everyone is, like, misremembering how woke 1 was and how woke 1.0 is destroyed us, and that's why we had to have that's why we all had to become Nazis. It's like, what the No, there were plenty of, like, TV shows and movies that had woke things in them. You just didn't care. And then you got convinced that this is what's ruining society, that feminism is destroying our world because, I don't know, you're insane. There is one nice thing about living in this time, which is people's opinions shifting about Israel. Are you talking about Shu? No, I'm just talking about in general that people, I mean, not yesterday, Sunday, we watched a little bit of that Channel 5 interview where, like, Nick Fuentes is like, but woke 1 and, like, society and the left, everything became so cancel culture and that's why everyone had to become Nazis. And it's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? What? No. What are you hallucinating?
Right wing by nature.
Yeah.
And they could not tolerate, they couldn't absorb or reconcile what was happening.
So we're gonna get into the book quickly because I feel like there are a lot of historical analogs you utilize when comparing. You start off with October 7, and you immediately in the beginning of the book, you not only document the ways in which the Israeli government engaged in atrocity, but you actually hyper focus instead on the Western media, the Western officials, the international institutions, and how they failed. You wrote the Gaza's Gravediggers with the explicit purpose of documenting the institutional corruption that supported the genocide of Palestinians rather than Israel's actions themselves, though. That was a deliberate effort. You open the book referencing the fifth labor of Hercules, in which he's ordered to clean out the Augean stables filled with animal poop. This metaphor extends to the entirety of the book. Can you explain the reference to both myself and the viewers, and why do you believe it's necessary to focus the story on the institutions that insulated and supported Israel rather than Israel itself?
Well, I think that's a very good question. I did not attack Biden. I had some passing remarks about Mr. Blinken, nothing substantive. I certainly didn't focus much attention on Mr. Netanyahu, on his cohorts, because the simple reason is, when I wrote several books on Gaza, the record was not known. It was sort of hidden away, collecting dust in human rights reports. Even the human rights organizations, they do their research, but then there's supposed to be a second step. They're supposed to lobby on the basis of your research. The second step never came. The report simply collected dust. And so I wanted to preserve the historical record. And the purpose was because nobody had done that kind of work. I could say a large chunk of my life now sits on my bookshelves at home, with just not thousands, but tens of thousands of pages printed out of human rights reports. I wanted to document for history the record. That wasn't necessary with Gaza. Gaza now, everybody knows who wants to know. Everybody knows what's going on. And I felt to simply document the record again was a waste of time. The record is known, and also the perpetrators are known. They'll probably, in my generation, the slogan was, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? Referring to Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president during the war in Vietnam. I think Genocide Joe is going to go down also.
Yeah.
That will be remembered. So all of that seemed superfluous to go through the record again. If I had great narrative powers, I would have done it. I don't know if you've read, I don't know if even...
Sort of comically, it's funny that all of the people that make such a stink about the woke 1.0, woke 2, you guys are making us into Nazis, you guys are just being so leftist, and that's why we're all becoming Nazis, is that those are the same people that will try to morally shame you for saying, I don't give a shit if fucking Biden dies, if Genocide Joe dies to cancer, that guy's a piece of shit. He's complicit in the genocide. He insisted on running again, despite the fact that people wanted a primary and thought he was too old to win. Like, why the would I care about some fucking piece of shit politician who should have stepped aside, who shouldn't have been complicit, who had the power to not be complicit and chose to be anyways? And it's the same exact people that are, I mean, it's rightoids or centrists that love to be like, you guys are just constantly turning us into Nazis with your insane requests to be, quote, treated like people. And then you say, like, I don't care if any of these people die. And they're like, oh, how could you say that? You know, they were just doing their job. Okay, they were just, you don't understand. It's the president of the United States' job to kill Arab people, especially children. Okay, that's literally his job. It's like, what? What the f are you, what the f are you talking about? Huh?
Your viewers will know, it was a wonderful, wonderful book written on the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982. It's long forgotten now, but between 15 and 20,000 Palestinian and Lebanese were killed, overwhelmingly civilians. It was, you know, up until Gaza, it was by far the biggest bloodletting. And there was a British historian, a British journalist, Robert Fisk, and he wrote this book, Pity the Nation. It's really breathtaking. It's a breathtaking piece of narrative history. I don't have those narrative powers. I have good expository powers. I can sit down, analyze a document, and I can logically go through it, and I don't leave any wiggle room. You're cornered, you're trapped, it's case closed. So I didn't waste my time on the documenting the facts. What I did do was I wanted to look at agencies, institutions from which you expect better. The International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, the UN Commissions of Inquiry, Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and where you expect better, and to hold them accountable, not just the usual suspects, but also other people who, because of careerism, cupidity, cowardice, they sold their souls. Now, I want to be clear. The record was not terrible by the international institutions. It was not. You know, we don't want a straw man. They were not. It was not terrible. The statements by the UN senior officials, like Philippe Lazzarini, the head of UNRWA, Gutierrez, a lot of it was quite good. And I acknowledge that. But there were other things that were terrible. Now, so far I've spoken in abstract.
We're gonna dial in on that for sure.
So let me just, okay, since that's coming later.
Yeah.
Then, so that was my, so to speak, my modus operandi.
Yeah.
When I wrote Gaza, an inquest into its martyrdom, nobody knew any of the facts. And it's a terrible story. I won't call it tragic, because the Greek term tragic means the fate was preordained. It was not preordained. This was systematic, methodical, and intentional.
Yeah.
But it's a horrible history. And I... Do you guys remember? Why does the mic have the orange airsoft cap? LMAO, stop. Do you guys remember when me and a bunch of other people were ringing the alarm bells on? I'm sorry. Gaza is the world's largest open-air prison that is some of the most surveilled, like, area on the planet, if not the most surveilled. And they didn't know that October 7th was something to be concerned about, that there would be an attack on October 7th? And myself and a handful of other people said that, rightfully said that, and we're called anti-Semitic, and we're saying, well, you're saying that they deserved it. It's like, wait, no. I'm saying you don't understand how this would give Israel the leverage, the social leverage they would need to genocide these people that they want to genocide. Netanyahu's talked about wanting to fucking raise Gaza. This would give him the opportunity to do so. And is it not insane that this is the most surveilled few miles on this planet, and they had no way of knowing anything? That just strikes me as odd. And again, getting called anti-Semitic for that. And then the reports come out that Netanyahu knew, and he chose to ignore it because he thought it wasn't a big deal. And myself and a bunch of other people said, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? And then more reports came out later that the festival was specifically moved right next to the Gaza Strip. And it's like, okay. All right. I'm glad all of us got called anti-Semitic for correctly pointing out the truth and what actually happened. Okay. Excellent. They talk about that in this interview. Well, yeah, I mean, again, anyone who tried to talk about any of these issues and raise like some alarm bell or like ring some alarm bells and raise some red flags about this got really fucking pissed and just called everyone else anti-Semitic. It's like, it's so insane. I just like don't understand.
Wrote to chronicle. This time, though, I wrote to indict. To hold these people accountable. And I still hope they will be held accountable.
Yeah.
There are certain officials who either should be censured or they should be ousted from office. And I named them very clearly.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that, but I do want to start with your prologue because the book opens briefly with October 7, but it actually very quickly shifts into Nat Turner's 1831 slave revolt. And despite ordering his followers to kill all white people, he's now revered as an American freedom fighter, which you also talk about. You ask, before he stands condemned, mustn't it be asked, except to live and die in thraldom? What alternative did Nat Turner have? You also mentioned at the time, revered white abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison expressed horror over the events that took place, but blamed the white slave-owning population, saying, we have warned our countrymen of the danger of persisting in their unrighteous conduct. I've also utilized the Nat Turner Rebellion example when referencing October 7. You have as well. I've seen your interactions on Piers Morgan, which is an interesting affair. We can talk about that later as well. But I wanted to hear, do you view yourself as a modern-day equivalent of the white abolitionist after writing about the Zionist oppression of Palestine for over 4 decades now? And obviously, you're probably a little too humble to answer that in a similar manner. But what other warnings have been ignored that you've been ringing the alarm bells on?
I can't tell. Are you being sarcastic? We also got to talk about the Pakistani grooming gangs in the UK as well. This is a sarcastic message, right? You're just being sarcastic? This is a joke not landing?
First of all, one has to acknowledge one's precursors and one has to acknowledge one's current collaborators. There have been many people. It's still a small number, but there's still a number. My precursors were people like Noam Chomsky, Israel Shahak from the country Israel, Edward Said. They came before me, and in many ways, I learned from them both their steadfastness.
I don't condone Israel's action, nor do I condone racist Pakistani gangs. See, if you had come at any other time, on any other day, I would entertain you and talk about how wrong you are and how much of a fucking moron you are. But unfortunately, today is not the day for you. You should have come on a different day. Do not come. I will not allow some random moron to derail the stream. Guys, I hallucinated Pakistani roaming gangs that are raping at 99% rates. Can I make this your problem? And you know what's fucked up about that chatter? I just did ban appeals yesterday. So that chatter is not going to get looked at for like 5 years. Good luck, buddy. Your account is fucked. Your account is fucked.
And also their mental powers, their dedication, their conscientiousness. I would say now I've entered the age where they're gone. They're not on the scene anymore. And so the mantle has, so to speak, with the baton has been passed to me. I don't believe I had any great powers of prediction. A lot of my analysis since October 7th, I believe, has been borne out. But in general, those who predicted that if Israel continued with the occupation, it was going to be a dramatic deterioration in Israeli society. There was a fellow, I suspect you've never even heard of him, Yeshayahu Leibovich, and he was Israel's great philosopher. He had 4 PhDs, a really smart guy. And he, along with a certain number of others, said as early as 1967, this occupation is going to be a complete disaster. That if you don't end it, Israel, he coined the phrase, by the way, Yeshayahu Leibovich, who was the most revered intellectual in Israel. He coined the phrase, Israel is turning into a country of Judeo-Nazis.
People will say that term actually originated from David Duke sometimes.
No. David Duke is not bright enough to originate it.
So what's interesting on that point that you just mentioned is one of the...
Dude, Norm Finkelstein roasting people is always so good. He is not bright enough to, to have coined that phrase.
One of the examples that I often use is the horror in reaction to the Deir Yassin massacre from the likes of Albert Einstein, who has gone back and forth and has a more complex, I think, experience with Zionism and what it turned into. But his commitment to binationalism and living alongside peacefully with the Jewish and the Palestinian population was very clear. And he is the example that I usually go to, which is really interesting because The Atlantic actually wrote a whole article on me deploying the Albert Einstein example, saying that this was actually wrong, that Albert Einstein was a huge Zionist and loves Israel, and I was lying about his background. Are you familiar with some of the things that Einstein has said about?
I've read his writings. I have to say I'm a bit of a skeptic about the possibilities of coexistence.
We're going to get to that as well.
Between the Jews and the indigenous Arab population, because there was such a sense of contempt for Arabs, Muslims, the indigenous population, and such a sense of a double kind of superiority by the Jewish settlers.
The other thing too is, I forget like the really famous guy. Like there's this Twitter post ages ago from this guy that's pretty well known, and he had like a video or like a post with like a photo in it where he was literally saying like, I'm gonna blank on it. I have so little memory of it. A really famous guy drill. No, it was a post of him basically espousing the same like, this was promised to us 3,000 years ago. I think it was like a post, and he had specifically explicitly said, we are the chosen people for this land. Like, we are literally the chosen people. And it's like, how do you, if someone knows who the fuck I'm talking about and what the fuck post I'm talking about, great, you can link it. But otherwise, don't worry about it. You don't have to get too caught up in it. Was it Rappaport? No, was it? Maybe if someone can find the post, I can just show it on screen. But even if you look at just the interviews that people have done, both in Israel with Israelis, or I know that there's that one guy on like, I think TikTok, who does interviews on like Omegle with like, or whatever the equivalent is, with some random IDF soldiers. And they will explicitly say, yeah, we're the chosen people. We are the chosen people. We have more rights than everyone else here. How do you square that away with the idea that everyone is just supposed to sing Kumbaya and work together when one group overwhelmingly thinks that they deserve more rights? I'm not saying it's impossible, but I understand Norm Finkelstein's opinion of like, I'm a little skeptical at the idea that this is something that's manageable. It's literally contradictory. Yeah.
There was the superiority of being European.
Yeah.
And then that was compounded, or you might say determined by the sense of Jews feeling superior. That sense of superiority born of a certain notion of Jews being chosen people. And then there was just the sense of the backwardness of the Arab Muslim community in general. So when you fill out the historical picture, the probability of a real coexistence among equals, I think, was not really very plausible. There were some individuals who weren't bad. The first head of the Hebrew University, a fellow named Judah Magnus, I think he was a pretty decent fellow so far as I can tell reading his stuff, but I don't think it was really very possible. I think the most honest formulation came from now a right-wing Israeli historian. He wasn't always right-wing, Benny Morris, who you've
had the pleasure of debating.
Yeah, he said that the idea of transfer is the euphemism for expulsion. Mm-hmm. He said the idea of transfer was inbuilt and inevitable in Zionism. I think that's a more honest reckoning of where things stood back then. So I'm not a believer that there was a real possibility of coexistence, though it's never been. It's certainly got much uglier in recent years. You could say the ugliness is either more honesty, or the expression that hypocrisy is the complement that vice pays to virtue. The older generation, they weren't so in your face. You mentioned Menachem Begin. Menachem Begin, he would be considered now the far left in Israel.
Yeah.
He would. But during his first term of office, he was elected in 1977. Well, you know what one of his first acts was? He abolished torture. Israel was practicing torture against Palestinian detainees from right after the 1967 war. Now this guy, Begin was...
He's too woke for Israel now.
Exactly. Begin was a lawyer by training, and he was a stickler about the law. And he knew torture was illegal. So he did abolish it. I mean, nowadays, you couldn't even imagine that. It's not even conceivable.
Nowadays, the only time that Israel ever prosecutes any war criminals in their ranks is when they intercept the communications of ICC prosecutors in an effort to utilize the complementarity principle against the ICC to...
I mean, it's so bad that when you hit the translate button, unlike any official Israel account or any official minister or head of state or anything like that, any politician, or sometimes even just some random IDF like soldier accounts, you press the translate button and it's like the Hitler particles are off the chart. It's like, okay. Huh. Oh, is that right?
Tell you something. The Jews are chosen. We, the Jewish people, are chosen. I know. A lot of people get upset when I say that. It's in the Torah. I didn't make this shit up.
Oh, it's in your old book. Oh, I didn't know we were pulling out old books. Oh, okay. Well, my old book says, go fuck yourself. All of your socials deleted immediately. To the coal mines. That's what mine says. If you are, if you say heinous shit on the internet, you work in the coal mines for forever. If you're a misogynist, sexist, bigoted, or saying any of this shit, which is at least some of these, yeah, that's what my old book says. Yep, And my old book is better than your old book. My old book is so much better. Yeah. What? I don't understand when people pull this shit up. I don't understand when people are like, well, the Bible says. I don't give a shit what the Bible says. I don't give a fuck what the Bible says. Why would you think I give a fuck? Huh? Oh, well, the Torah says, why would I? The Quran, why would I give a fuck? Explain to me why I would give a fuck when we live in a country of separation of church and state.
If I made it up, you think I would be podcasting right now? If I was as brilliant to be the one that said the Jews are chosen, you think I would be podcasting right now? I'd be sitting, owning buildings somewhere. It's in Torah. The Jews are the chosen people. I didn't make it up. There's plenty of other people, namely Hashem, that you could take.
Do you guys think anything good has ever happened when one group of people have said, we are the chosen people, unlike you? You guys think anything good has ever come of that? When one group of people thinks that they are better than or chosen by God over this other group of people? I think only good can happen, actually. Nothing bad. It can only good happen, right? Or was it the other way around?
Pick it up with. The Jews are chosen, but we're not perfect. No one ever said the Jews are perfect. Most importantly, the Jews never said that we are perfect. Why we are held to unattainable standards of perfection more than
the unattainable standard of not being pro-genocide? I don't know, man. I think that that's a pretty attainable standard. That I would actually argue most Jewish people, especially young Jewish people, they are capable of holding that standard of being against genocide. I don't know. It's actually not that hard. I just don't understand.
Any other race, religion, in the history of race, religions is beyond me. We're chosen, but we're not perfect. We'll be the first to tell you. We ain't perfect. Israel ain't perfect. And we never said we were. And Israel never said it was. I'll tell you something.
Defending Israel's genocide by saying, they're not perfect, okay? All right? They're not perfect. Yeah, they do little oopsies sometimes. Yeah, there are arrest warrants out for, you know, Netanyahu. But, like, we're not perfect. Speaking like my ex after I caught them cheating is crazy. Oh my God.
Act as though they're doing a show, a mock trial, basically, to hopefully stop the ICC from further prosecuting their war crimes, which again we'll talk about. I wanted to continue in the epilogue.
I want to just return to the Nat Turner analogy. Just as a matter of background, when October 7th first happened, the first couple of days, I don't know if you remember.
Oh, I remember.
Right, the first couple of days, it just looked like a prison breakout.
Yeah.
And they said about 50 people were killed. And, 50 people, that's not even the blink of an eye. So I immediately made my sentiments known that I supported
I also remember that.
the prison breakout. And I had no qualms about it, no compunction. But then it became clear that something much bigger happened. And when something much bigger happened, it was not, it was hard to try to think it through, to figure out, well, where do I stand? Probably on the order of 1,200 people were killed. I would say the evidence is pretty clear. About 850 were civilians.
Yeah.
And of those 850 civilians, as of now, I've read all the available material, overwhelmingly were killed by Palestinian militants.
Yeah.
So that's a large number. You can't get around that. That's a large number. When Sabra and Shatila happened in 1982, the massacre in Lebanon, the initial numbers that came out, they turned out to be low. The initial numbers that came out were about 800 Palestinians were slaughtered in Sabra and Shatila. In fact, it was probably closer to 2,000. But even when 800 came out, that was considered a very large number.
Yeah.
And then if you you're from Egypt, when Sisi came to power, he committed the massacre at Rabat Square with the nonviolent protesters. And the estimate by Human Rights Watch was about 1,000 were killed. And that was seen as it was the largest single massacre in Egyptian history. So that seemed a large number.
Yeah.
And now I'm faced with about 850 civilians killed on October 7th. And what do you do with it? What do you do with it? Now, under normal circumstances, namely for the last 40 years, I don't say this with pride, I'm just saying it factually, I normally would have consulted Professor Chomsky. I considered his moral judgment, if not impeccable, near impeccable, and I usually defer to his moral judgment. But he wasn't available. And I was sweating for around a week because I knew a lot of people were going to want to know what I think. And I was torn. I was torn between the fact that I knew, from having spent about the last 20 years, I knew what had been done to the people of Gaza. I knew the details, the horror of what those folks endured. On the other hand, there was a mass slaughter. And what do you do with it? And I thought, I walked the streets trying to figure this out. And it happened that the last book I had written was on wokeness, and I had read a lot about the abolitionists. And I had read, of course, about Nat Turner. So I turned to Nat Turner, the rebellion, and I said, you know what? Roughly, it's about the same thing. What the slaves endured was not much different. Gaza from 1948, when it was under Egyptian rule.
And it is insane to me that Zionists can't seem to understand this. The really super pro-Israel people, be them Christian or Jewish, just in general, what they seem to be unable to understand is you don't have to be pro-murder to be against the genocide against the Palestinians. No one on the left is happy that any civilians were dying on October 7th. If you're talking to someone or you're looking at someone online who was, that's a Nazi. That's not someone on the left. That's just a Nazi. But there is no number of people that could have died on October 7th to have made genocide an acceptable response. That's not... Because no one was okay with that to begin with.
From 1948, it was repeatedly described as a concentration camp by outside visitors. Even the extreme right wing, head of Israel's National Security Council, Giora Eiland, who's still among us. He was one of the advisors during the Gaza genocide. He described in 2004, he described Gaza as a concentration camp. He said it's a huge concentration camp. So now I knew what they had endured. I knew there had been a massacre, a slaughter of significant dimensions. And then what do you do with it? I saw Nat Turner rebellion seem more or less analogous. The first order, kill all white people. And that's what they proceeded to do. They went from house to house, smashed the skulls of women, killed men. Even in this case, they did behead babies. Not on October 7th, but during the Nat Turner rebellion. So now I have the analogy, but then there's a second step. You got the analogy, where do you stand on it? And I thought the right place to look were the abolitionists. They were of sublime moral character. They were courageous, they were consistent, and they were very smart. You don't get people smarter than Charles Sumner, Frederick Douglass. They were really impressive. And when I went back to read their writings, what became very clear was they would not condemn Nat Turner.
Yeah.
They would not. They condemned the white system that forced Nat Turner to do what he did, the coercive system that created Nat Turner. And then I felt, okay, if I'm wrong, then the white abolitionists and black abolitionists, they're wrong.
including Frederick Douglass.
Frederick Douglass is an interesting case.
Yeah.
Because the abolitionists were against violence.
Yeah.
They believed in what they called moral suasion. But Douglass described Nat Turner as one of our glorious martyrs, one of our revolutionary fathers. Same thing, W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah.
They all acclaim Nat Turner. Now, what's also interesting is the black people at the time, they did not condemn Nat Turner. They were exactly.
Well, I know that from your book.
Yeah, he came to occupy a place in African American folklore, and he became a folk hero. They would refer to him as, quote, Old Nat's War, Old Nat's War, because they understood whatever the methods, whatever the horrors, and as you quoted William Lloyd Garrison, he recognized horrors occurred. But where did it come from? Ultimately, what was its deep source? Its deep source was the desire for freedom, the struggle for human dignity. Maybe it was wrongly expressed, but there's another question. What option did they have? What option, if you're speaking honestly, what option did the people of Gaza have? They tried diplomacy. They tried international law. They tried nonviolent civil resistance. They tried everything. And it was all a dead end. And as you probably remember, by October 6, 2023, the only game in town was, would the Saudis join the Abraham Accords?
Yeah.
Gaza had been forgotten. Well, and then the rest is, so to speak, to quote the cliche, the rest is history.
Yeah. So going into this analogy a little bit further, because you brought up the fact that binationalism was destined to fail from the start, given the supremacist attitudes from early Zionists, doubly supremacist considering that there's the European colonialism aspect to it, but then also Jewish supremacy directly. I agree with that. But we live in the United States of America, which is
totally
a country that is objectively white supremacist in its fundamentals. And yet we now live in a country that has obviously a very complex history and still continues to struggle with offering any kind of real restitution.
Holy shit, I didn't know it was sped up when Norm was talking. Yeah, sorry. You don't understand. Listen, I love Norm and everything, and he's great on Palestine, and he's great on Israel, but he does talk really slow. I have to 1.5 him. To
Black Americans. And yet I always go back to that same comparison about the end of the abolition of the apartheid. And that is what that is part of the reason why I present the one-state solution and, forcible reintegration. It's also the same reason why anytime I see, and I think this is a really good tool in the tool belt for those who are for freeing of Palestine, the argument that we can't free Palestine because then the fucking Arabs will kill all of the Jews it's just insane. It's like, it's objectively insane. And it's also the same exact argument used to not free slaves in the United States for decades. Oh, well, we're going to free them and then all of the white people are going to get killed. And it's like, you cannot use your fears and your projected opinions on what you would do to a people and use that as a reason to continue to oppress a people. Like, it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy. People who have self-determination and agency don't feel the need to engage in violence. Correct. Absolutely correct. It's also self-reporting that they're saying that they've been so awful to a group of people that they fear reprisals for their actions. Correct. Also true. Yeah. It's just insane. It's just so... These poor chatters. I just think it's odd how this is so important to everyone in the United States. Don't you think if we were funding Germany's weapons as they were mass killing Jews in the 1930s and 40s, don't you think that, like, people would be uncomfortable with that? If you pay taxes in the US, your money, at least some of it, has gone to murdering children that don't deserve to die. Or maiming children that didn't deserve to be maimed, or destroying homes of children or families that didn't deserve that. When your taxpayer dollars are funding a genocide, you're going to care a little bit more about what's happening. Or you should. Or you should. If empathy is too difficult of a concept, having empathy for people that are being genocided, if that's too difficult, you should at least care because that's where our money is going. So who should and shouldn't open their borders to Palestine? I think you might want to, like, check up on the history of the region a little bit. Okay. Maybe just a smidge.
maybe, I don't know, look at like the right to return protests. When did Israel get their last payment from the US? How do you have such strong opinions when you don't know anything about the conflict? I'm asking questions. Hey, I'm going to be honest with you, buddy. I think this conversation might be a little above what you're down to talk about. So I think you should just come back tomorrow. You should spend the day reading up and come back tomorrow. Because if I was giving you history lessons, we would be here all day. So just come back tomorrow. Okay, buddy? All right. Because I don't know if you know this. There's this website. It's called Google. Google. And I am actually, I know, it's shocking. I am not Google. And you can actually go and look. You can ask it questions, just so you know. And you can know all the answers to all these questions. I would sit here and explain it to you, but I have other stuff that I wanted to talk about. No way, unsubbed. Just the last day, there was a Congress vote on additional billions. They literally just got a $3.3 billion bump earlier this week. Yay. We actually got through almost all the topics. There was no way we were going to watch this 3-hour video. We got through 30 minutes, which is pretty fucking impressive, I gotta say so myself.